In 2019, Todd Phillips, a director known for goofy comedies like the Hangover trilogy, released onto the unsuspecting world a dark, gritty movie about a timid, lonely man beaten down by life, the world, and society, who one day snaps and becomes something of an anti-hero for others who felt similarly trampled, abused, and forgotten. His violent outbursts and angry monologues were felt like catharses by people who were becoming disillusioned with a cruel, uncaring, and increasingly hostile world and its inhabitants. A nerve was struck. Small, angry groups of bitter, spiteful little goblins tried fruitlessly to demonize this movie before it was even released, tried to get it pulled from theaters, howled about the imminent violence this movie and its protagonist would surely inspire in chuds, incels, and the most evil, fearful creatures of all, white men. None of this happened. The movie was Joker, and it went on to become one of the biggest surprise hits in cinematic history, grossing over $1 billion against a production budget of only $55 million. Cha-ching! To the absolute mortification of the feeble little would-be saboteurs, critics and audiences absolutely loved this film. It was showered with praise and awards, including the Golden Lion, whatever that is, and the Best Actor Oscar for Joaquin Phoenix, making this the second time the Clown Prince of Crime won the once prestigious award. It was the first R-rated movie to pass the $1 billion mark, and was the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time until Deadpool and Wolverine. The rancorous, insignificant, hateful little imps who had tried to destroy Joker had lost. When asked in interviews about potential sequels to his runaway success, Todd Phillips stated, like the true sexual tyrannosaurus that he is, that he had no intention of continuing with Joker, and that Arthur Fleck's story was indeed done. This news was praised by fans of the movie, as Joker is a very rare thing indeed, a nearly flawless movie, and any attempts to continue the story ran the risk of cheapening it and watering down its potency. In an age of endless sequels, prequels, and reboots, one man said one and done, and the world rejoiced. But something stirred in the lands of Mordor. Warner Brothers and DC, battered, bruised, and all but broken by a string of failure after failure from their DCEU cinematic universe that never was, finally had a certified hit, and they were not about to let this cash cow go unmilked. Despite Todd's insistence that he was done with Joker, Warner Brothers and DC were not about to let their newly minted golden boy walk away so easily. Now, I can only speculate as to how this next series of events played out. Despite what you might believe about me, I am not a Hollywood player. I have no inside contacts, and my sources are that I'm pulling all of this out of my ass. Warner Brothers was desperate. They needed Todd Phillips. They needed Joker. They hammered Todd unceasingly with offer after offer. Money, power, women, men. His own covered parking space, unlimited soup, salad, and breadsticks. Anything, just give us a sequel. But Todd is an artist with integrity. Anyone who's seen the Hangover saga knows this. I've never seen them because they look retarded, but you know what I mean. But one thing is crystal clear. Todd is a man of unflinching principle and rectitude, and he could not let his vision be tainted. Channeling brave King Leonidas at Thermopylae, he held firm. But Warner Brothers would not relent. It was all becoming too much, and Todd, mere mortal that he is, simply wanted what any man unlucky enough to find himself in the unenviable position of being showered with cash wanted. A way out. So, he said yes. And he planned. Todd knew that he could not let Joker become yet another debased, vapid franchise devoid of substance and artistic merit. But he could also not simply tell Warner Brothers that his intention was to kill their only hope at a cinematic universe. If they knew his true intent, they would never allow him anywhere near it. They would hire some young punk with no clout, cachet, or spine to take the reins, deliver product, and most importantly, do what he was told. Todd knew that Joker had to die, and as a real man, he knew it was up to him to give it a quick, clean death, rather than the long, drawn-out, suffering demise that Warner Brothers would surely have in store for it without him. The money being thrown at him truly meant nothing. This was about honor and doing what was right. But how do you convince a desperate, flailing, wild-eyed studio that you intend to kill their golden goose and get them to go along with it? There was only one way: appeal to their ESG score. Todd knew that the only thing a soulless corporation and the sycophants running it care about even more than profits is their environmental, social, and governance score. He knew that there was literally no way these thralls would do anything to anger their overlords at BlackRock, Vanguard, and the World Economic Forum, and he was going to use this weakness to his advantage. So, like the true Omega Chad that he is, Todd walked into that snake pit and laid it all out for them. Here's how it went down. Accurately, precisely, allegedly. Todd spoke to them of Joker's appeal to nasty, undesirable alt-right toads and ogres. He told them of the violence that had simmered in every theater that showed it. So close was this animosity to boiling over that police literally had to be stationed outside them and undercover within them to make sure the disgusting basement dwellers worshipping the film didn't kill literally everyone in attendance. He provided proof of this in the form of Reddit threads and Washington Post articles, evidence that no post-2015 DEI higher corporate exec would be capable of ignoring. I can only imagine the excruciating emotional pain and anguish that Todd must have been going through, hearing these horrible and erroneous denunciations being hurled at his beloved creation, and them coming from his own mouth no less. But this was the price he knew he had to pay. This seeming betrayal of his own cinematic child to these cold-blooded corporate reptilians. The pain of it was nothing compared to what they would do if he failed in his mission and they got their claws on it. Joker wouldn't simply become gay or trans as so many other characters are forced to do. No, that would be too merciful. Instead, for his crimes against modern audiences, Joker would be deconstructed. He was a bona fide cis-het incel chud alt-right pale male icon, and he would be made to suffer for it. Harley Quinn would browbeat and girl boss him into a sniveling, cowering blob. Then she would dye her hair green and proclaim that while he was the limp, flaccid clown prince, she is the clown king of crime because women can be kings now. And she, an ethnic body-positive Batwoman, pronouns they, them, would have a torrid lesbian love affair while dismantling the toxic patriarchy that has held Gotham in its fetid grasp for far too long. Plus, something Batman multiverse. Todd knew the stakes, and as much as it hurt him, he absolutely eviscerated the movie that he had so lovingly crafted, and which had repaid him by making him a superstar. And then, after he had finished verbally gutting his baby, and he looked around the meticulously ethnically and sexually diverse congregation of snakes in human suits, something happened. They agreed. Joker was a tumor on society that needed to be cut out. Todd had done it. Joker 2 was greenlit, and he was in control. It must be a strange thing to look into the face of something you gave birth to as you were killing it, knowing that it had done nothing wrong, nothing to deserve this, but that to not do it was to condemn it to a much worse fate. Could you do it, dear listener? How would you explain to it what was happening and why? What would you say? What could you say? This was the cross Todd Phillips bore, secretly and silently. To all around him, it seemed as if nothing was wrong and that life couldn't be better. On the surface, it was calm waters, but just below, it must have been turmoil, churning chaos, and inky, abyssal darkness. With Joker Folie à Deux, Todd had created what appears to be a sluggish, pompous, empty piece of deconstructionist Hollywood trash. Scenes that slog on forever, going nowhere. Glitzy musical numbers that exist not to advance the story, but simply to fill the screen with hollow, meaningless spectacle. Setups with no hope of payoff. He did give his old friend some dignity in death, though. Like dressing a condemned man in his finest attire, he made sure that Joker looked fantastic for its public execution. Cinematography and shot framing that told everyone with eyes to see that if you're going to pay to watch a man die, he should at least look his best for his morbid onlookers. And then came the final reveal that Arthur was never the Joker, and that everything up to now meant nothing. Fine. Fade to black. Curtains. To those too ideological, too stupid to see the true purpose of Todd's final, merciful coup de grace, this was the moment they'd waited for, what they'd wailed and howled on Reddit for, what they'd written breathless, screed-filled articles for, what they'd tried to accomplish through feeble boycotts and threats to movie theaters. Arthur Fleck, Joker, anti-hero icon of toxic imperialist Republican capitalist Second Amendment loving meat-eating genocidal QAnon transphobic pro-life flag waving colonialist fossil fuel burning MAGA science denying minor attracted person hating fascists was dead. His legacy destroyed. Throughout the world, tens of dozens of gender non-conforming gremlins stood up from their overburdened, filth-stained chairs and let out testosterone-deficient wheezes of triumph before getting dizzy from the exertion and sitting back down. It was done. And do you remember how you felt when you watched Joker Folie à Deux? Do you remember that feeling of utter disgust and revulsion? I do, and many, myself included, in our blind rage took to our respective outlets without stopping first to think of how Todd Phillips must be feeling, and pilloried the man for his transgression. Fools that we were, we utterly eviscerated Joker 2 and dragged a torment-racked man through the mud. We roared that Arthur Fleck had been betrayed and murdered by the one he trusted most. J'accuse, Judas. J'accuse. But this was all according to Todd's plans, and no one was suffering more than he. We only had to watch as Arthur Fleck was killed. Todd actually had to do it. He had driven the knife into Arthur and stared into those wide, confused, pain-stricken eyes, his own eyes welling with tears of agony, tears of love. He had to put his beloved friend down, and we crucified him for it on the review sites and YouTube channels. All of this, the anger, the hatred, the vitriol, all of this he bore alone. But his mission was accomplished. His friend was safe now. Safe from a threequel. Safe from any further degradation and dilution. Safe from the dark and gritty R-rated reimagining of Suicide Squad because the third time's the charm. This excruciating final act of kindness, this horrible sacrifice, this Todd did not only for his cherished creation, this he did for us, so that whatever horrible, soulless thing Joker might have become, we would never have to see it. And for this reason, my dear friends, Todd Phillips is not the villain we all painted him to be. He's not a phony, money-grubbing, legacy-imploding, postmodernist corporate butt-boy sellout. Todd Phillips is a hero. Todd, if by some cosmic chance you see this, know that your sacrifice was not in vain. Joker will continue to be watched and admired for decades to come, while Folie will be forgotten by most and only revisited to be ridiculed for easy content. I know you can never publicly admit what really happened, for fear of the vicious litigation those corporate monsters would no doubt bury you under. And I know that no amount of money they may have stuffed your bank accounts with is worth the agony and turmoil you must undoubtedly be going through beneath that stoic, smiling facade you bravely present to the world. May your suffering be brief. Your sacrifice was punishment enough, and putting yourself through even more would accomplish nothing. We accept you, Todd Phillips. One of us. Gooble gobble, we accept you. One of us.